Hello and welcome to Food for You and the Planet, a fresh new podcast that explores healthy and environmentally sustainable food solutions. This podcast is brought to you by Healthy Plan Eat Online Farmers Market. I'm Dr. Rosemary Ostfeld and I'm your host. Together, we'll hear from leaders in environmental science, agriculture, medicine, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and more. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to hear all the latest in healthy and sustainable food with Food for You and the Planet. Today's episode features Sally McGee, Director of Climate and Strategic Initiatives at the Nature Conservancy and leader of the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition. Sally McGee works for the Nature Conservancy, where she is the Director of Climate and Strategic Initiatives for the Global Aquaculture Program. Her areas of focus include the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition, sustaining oyster aquaculture and restoration, and projects focused on seaweed cultivation. Sally also developed, owned, and operated an oyster farm, Sixpenny Oysters in Noank, Connecticut. Previously, Sally was the Nature Conservancy's Northeast Marine Program Director and focused on wild harvest fisheries and marine spatial planning. She was also a voting member of the New England Fishery Management Council, which governs wild harvest fisheries out to 200 miles offshore. Sally received her bachelor's degree in economics from Smith College and her master's degree in marine affairs from the University of Rhode Island. She also worked in the U.S. House of Representatives on natural resource, climate, and agriculture issues. Sally is a certified master gardener and volunteers in her local giving garden growing produce for food insecure people in southeastern Connecticut. Thank you so much for joining today, Sally.
Yeah, thanks for getting through all that.
What is the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition and what type of work does it do?
Yeah, the coalition was formed in 2018. And it's managed by the Nature Conservancy, but it wasn't something that was created by the Nature Conservancy. It was an idea that was brought to us by shellfish farmers. So the Nature Conservancy has worked with shellfish farmers for a long time, because we need what they grow to create restoration projects, shellfish reefs. So we've always had kind of a transactional relationship with them. We buy what they produce and put what they produce on our restoration sites. So we had this relationship. So we know farmers all over the country, all over the United States that we've worked with for a long time. And they know that we, the Nature Conservancy, work on climate change as well. And so a few growers, 7 of them, came to us and said, we're seeing these impacts of climate change on our businesses increasing, and we want to do something about it, but we don't know really what to do, and we don't have capacity to do something about it. So maybe we could work together. So that's where it all started. So it was not our idea at all. It was their idea. So they came to us. And so from there, we started from just 7 growers from the East and West Coast, and started really focused on policy issues because there was a real opportunity in the federal government to make some real progress on climate policy. And we've kind of shifted because the opportunity isn't there anymore, to work in different areas. And over the course of the years that the coalition has been in existence, we've grown from 7 to, I don't know what the current count is. I should have looked before we started talking, but it's more than 300 business members around the country. So in every state where shellfish are grown. So
How did you become interested in the ocean and sustainable aquaculture?
Well, that's a long story, but I'll start more recently, not like when I crawled out of the ocean from the primordial ooze, but I worked for a long time in wild harvest fisheries management. So I was a member of the New England Fishery Management Council. And so that's a management body, a co-management body that comes up with rules for fishing off of the New England coast. And it was a hard job. I'm like tempted to use some spicy language because there was a lot of spicy language involved in managing fisheries in New England. And really it's managing fisheries in New England. It's cod, flounder, herring. Those are some of the species. Sea scallops. Those are some of the species that we managed. It was so often about saying no and saying don't fish there, fish less, use different gear, throw that fish overboard. You can't keep that fish, even if it's dead. It was hard in a lot of ways. Not just hard on me, hard on everybody in the whole process. So when I was done with my 9-year stint on the Fishery Management Council, still really interested and care a lot about the oceans. And there's this kind of mystery building down the street from me on the Mystic River in Connecticut. And it's where I found out that there's aquaculture co-op. I had no idea. They didn't have a sign or anything. I didn't know what they were doing. So I started talking with the person who was working there, and just started talking with him about what was going on there, and just started learning from there about aquaculture, which is much more about saying yes and grow more rather than saying no from the wild harvest side of things.
Can you tell me about your time spent as the owner and operator of Sixpenny Oysters?
Yeah. So I started that business from scratch. It was really fun. I learned more about the Mystic River, and this is in Connecticut. It's not in Massachusetts, not the Massachusetts Mystic River. It's the Connecticut Mystic River. I learned more about the Mystic River and like my local environment uh as a shellfish farmer than I did in any other way. It was really great, but it really started from just being curious about that mystery building and talking with Steve Plant, who's been the shellfish farmer for a long time. He still runs his business down there too. He has a shellfish farm as well in Mystic. And just asking him questions and about how he did his things. And I went out on his farm with him. And finally he said, is this something that you want to do yourself? And I had never thought about that as a possibility. And he planted the seed. And so I started it from there. So I call Steve, he's Pay It Forward Steve, because he totally helped me start my business and, figure out, just get it started and just give me, he planted the seed that this was something that I wanted to do. So I started from scratch and figured out where it needed to be, because location is everything for a shellfish farm. Got the permits, started it running, and it was small. I did it as just a small thing that I did part-time, and sold all of my oysters to one local restaurant here in Mystic where I live. And then about 8 years later, I sold the whole thing to a couple guys who continue to operate it today. So yeah, it was great. I learned a ton.
That sounds like a really fun experience. And yeah, what a
Mhm.
great way to get to learn more about the Mystic River and the environment.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges shellfish growers currently face?
Well, I mean, really from, where we started this discussion, I mean, they came to us and I mean, I saw it just in the 8 years when I had, Sixpenny Oysters, my farm, um, that from the beginning of the time when, when I started my farm to the end, just the change in seasonality, the cove where I had some of my lease areas would freeze over in the winter. I mean, it used to freeze over all the time. You used to, you'd be able to walk across it. It doesn't anymore at all. So it's climate change and, it's huge. It's huge. It changes the water chemistry. It changes, when algae blooms happen, it changes, when pathogens are in the water, how long pathogens are in the water. It changes everything about business operation. So it's insidious. It's not just about, oh my gosh, it's hot outside. Um, it really is. It affects so many aspects of the business operations.
What are some of the environmental benefits of shellfish in general?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I was able to get into shellfish farming and why a lot of people are able to is because they are so low on the food chain. You don't have to feed them anything. So they're low on the food chain, require no inputs. But as far as environmental benefits, the water quality benefits are significant. They eat microalgae. So when they eat the microalgae, the water quality is better, the water clarity is better. So other animals and like eelgrass, which is great habitat for other species, does better. Improved water quality, it does better for all sorts of other things. The thing about oysters too is that they form structure. So when they settle out from their larval stage, they settle and then they attach to other things. They like mostly to attach to each other. So they settle and they form these reef structures. And that structure is habitat for other species. So places where other species, juvenile species, can hide out and serves as nursery areas for other species. So they serve in that way, and they also can serve, people, as coastal storm protection as well. So some of the reef projects that the Nature Conservancy and other organizations work to create do just that. They create natural storm protection. Yeah, so they do a lot.
What are some of the environmentally sustainable practices that shellfish growers use?
Um, some of the sustainable practices that they use, you know, they uh they are inherently, just by I want to shift gears here a little bit. So one of the programs that I manage is called SOAR, sustaining or supporting oyster aquaculture and restoration. And this was started during the pandemic because all these farmers that we rely on for shellfish for our restoration projects were shut down because they didn't have anyone to sell to because all the restaurants were closed. We very quickly got together with some of our funders and said, if we can purchase some of these shellfish that are otherwise going to just keep growing and taking up space on the farms um, and are going to be discarded, and instead put them on restoration sites, that would be a win-win. So we did that. And I mean, it was, it was a drop in the bucket. We were able to do that for, for a number of farms. We in 7 states through the pandemic. And as far as the sustainable practices that shellfish growers use, just their very existence and keeping them in existence was something that was really important to us through the pandemic, and then going forward. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but I keeping shellfish farmers viable and is something that's really important to the Nature Conservancy's aquaculture program.
How does the Shellfish Growers Climate Coalition work with key stakeholders beyond shellfish growers like wholesalers, retailers, restaurants, and gear manufacturers?
Yeah, we have, so the coalition membership is about 3/4 are actual farmers. And then the rest are made up of the rest, like those others that you mentioned. And so they all also have a stake in this. If the farms go away, then the wholesalers don't have a source for their product. Same with the retailers, same with the restaurants and the gear manufacturers. The restaurants have often been, really good partners because, they're the ones who have, they're the final destination for the product. So they've been great partners for public education. So a lot of times farmers don't necessarily want to do that. That's not why they got into the business. But it is why, people who are in the restaurant business do what they do. They enjoy that public facing side. So our restaurant members have been really game to do that. And through social media, they do that as well, both with their customers in person and through social media.
This question might be a little bit different than some of the other ones, but are there any kind of fun ways you recommend people eat shellfish, or some of your favorite ways to have them?
Well, so I'm not, it's like having a favorite child, I guess. I'm thinking of my favorite child, but I'm not going to say it out loud. Um, there are so many different oysters. They are so different. I mean, if you go around the country, you will taste so many different oysters. So if you had an oyster and you say that you've tasted oysters and you've had one, you have not experienced an oyster. If you're not a fan of on the half shell, fine, don't eat it on the half shell. Don't feel pressure. I mean, people get all kind of crazy about, oh, you have to have it on the half shell. They are good. Some people like it, some people don't. I do. I think it's good if you do to just try it straight up plain, and do not pour out the water, which is called the liquor, when you have it on the half shell. That's part of it. Do not pour it out. If you have a really good shucker, they will keep that water in there. That comes along with it. That's part of what you're getting. So
One type of thing that's becoming more popular now is growing seaweed. So, can you share an example of innovative techniques sea farmers have used to grow shellfish and seaweed together?
yeah, like in New England, where I am, it's something that it's really interesting because the seaweed grows in the winter time, and the oysters, the more active season is in the summertime. So um, if you get your permitting all sorted out right, and you can do both in the same spot. or with some kind with overlapping, so you don't necessarily need more space. And so there's that, space wise, you don't have to look for more space. And you're diversifying as well. I mean, the challenge with seaweed is still getting the right market, because you can grow a lot. It grows really, it grows fast. It grows really fast, so you can get a large volume over, your growing season, from in New England, November to May-ish, 6-month growing season. So when you harvest in May, you get a huge volume that would turn into an awful lot of seaweed chips, probably more than what the market will bear at this point. Developing markets for seaweed is really important, and really where the seaweed market is right now is figuring out how best to support farmers, like shellfish farmers that are looking to diversify, how they can make sure that it's worth their time and effort. There are markets that are growing for biostimulants. So this is not fertilizers. This is, it's different. It's something that, that goes on land-based agriculture to encourage growth, or into feed for other agricultural endeavors. So there are, the markets are still developing in those ways for larger volume needs for seaweed. And there's a lot of enthusiasm for it. And I am, I'm not, it's happening. It's definitely happening. It still has some, a little ways to go, but it's moving in that direction. And, the combination of the two, shellfish plus seaweed is a nice combination in the right place.
What are some examples of educational outreach shellfish growers and storytellers have done to build awareness about some of the benefits of shellfish growing?
Yeah, so some of the educational outreach, so here in Mystic, just in the last couple of weeks, so Sixpenny Oysters, which was the company that I had, shellfish farmers really like to share what they're doing. There's a huge level of enthusiasm for sharing how the farming is happening, the ecosystem in which they're operating, the ecosystem benefits that their farm has. And so Sixpenny Oysters, the company that I owned, I know that they're taking out at the end of the school year, they're taking the teachers from the local Marine Science Magnet High School out for an end of year professional development day. I know earlier this week, Stonington Shellfish Farms took out a bunch of local high school students to learn about the farm, to learn about oysters, but also to see, a local small business in operation. Up in Massachusetts, Cuttyhunk Shellfish Farm, which is a member of the coalition, they're working with Boston Public Schools to bring high school students. They haven't sorted out how much they're going to be able to bring the students to the farm or farmers to the high school, specifically to learn about climate impacts. So it's a real hands-on way rather than a real world way for students to be able to learn and kind of understand what's going on with climate change in the real world and in a small business environment.
What do you think the future of sustainable food from the ocean will look like?
Well, we started this discussion with a little bit talking about wild harvest fisheries. And if you look at a graph of wild harvest fisheries for the whole planet, it has been flat for a long time, for decades. Like the ocean, we've taken as much from the ocean as it can give, in terms of wild harvest fisheries. So, and, I'd say it's what we've done in terms of wild harvest fisheries is not sustainable, even at that kind of maxed out level. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done to figure out what is sustainable in terms of wild harvest fisheries. But overall, I would say that sustainable food from the ocean looks much lower on the food chain, like shellfish, like seaweed. And if you look at that same graph of wild harvest fisheries and add aquaculture to it, you see aquaculture growing worldwide. The thing that we can do, I mean, it's kind of like a do-over in some ways. What we haven't done right in wild harvest, we have a chance to at least do better in aquaculture. I mean, there are a lot of places where we haven't done it right in aquaculture when you look in other places outside of shellfish and seaweed farming, but we do have a chance to do it better. It's growing, and we can get a handle on it, I think, much better than we have, and as we're trying to get more of a handle on wild harvest. So,
Are there any other things that you'd like to share?
eat oysters. They're good. They're not too scary. Give it a try. Support your local shellfish farmer. They are just super people, and they're really enthused about their work and their products, and they're low on the food chain, and they're good for you, and ask them about their shell recycling program, because the shells can go right back in the water and be turned into a reef too. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining the podcast today, Sally, and for all the work that you're doing to build sustainable, healthy oceans.
Thanks, Rosemary.